happy to have her recording. I just want to mention a couple other things that we have coming up. Next Thursday in the Provincetown Library and on Zoom, we have an organic pest and disease control program with Dave DeWitt. And then the following Thursday, Dave's going to be at the Truro Library doing a program about Beyond Organic. But both of those are in person. First one is here, the next one's in Truro, but both of them are on Zoom also, so you could be anywhere. And I want to point out our seed library that just got started this year, and thank our friends of the library group who funded it. So we're really excited about this. We're giving out 5 packets per household. And if you bring in seeds, you get to take more seeds. And what else? And I want to also point out, we have so many things coming up. We have another harvest highlight on February 24th at 1 o'clock with Nicole Cormier, and she's going to be doing another cooking demonstration that's Italian inspired. And so I'm going to turn it over to Sarah from Sustainable Cape, who's going to introduce Sustainable Cape and this program specifically, and then our awesome chef Abraham. So thanks.
Actually, we're gonna hand it over.
Oh, we're gonna hand it over to Francie first. We're gonna talk about Sustainable Cape. Thank you.
So I want to welcome everybody, and we'll introduce Sarah in a moment, who's going to talk about this specific event and the Harvest Highlight Series. But I'm Francie Randolph, and I'm the founding director of Sustainable Cape. And what we're doing here is a program trying to connect everybody to local food. And that's what all our programs do. So we run children's gardens at schools. We run children's gardens after school. And we run farmers markets. And we run food access programs at farmers markets. So we help farmers markets from Provincetown to Falmouth and on Nantucket to enable somebody with a SNAP card or a WIC or senior or a veteran or children's in our children's garden program to access free food, up to $80 to $120 worth of free food to them while the farmer gets paid in full. So all of our donations and our volunteers and all of these efforts are a way to connect all of us together in supporting our local food system and each other. So I'm really happy that everyone's here. I was having a brief conversation earlier today talking about why I feel local food is really important. There's so many different reasons, but one of the things we were talking about today is we're really focused on soil right now and how do we create healthy soil? How do we create healthy soil and healthy water? And this is a educational theme that runs through our children's gardening program, but that healthy soil and healthy water create a healthy plant. Healthy plant creates a healthy community. For a healthy body. Healthy bodies create a healthy community, and healthy communities create a healthy world. And so how do we start with the fundamentals? And what are those fundamentals? So we talk about what organisms and what happens in healthy soil. And there are ways that healthy soil and the fungal network exists to magnify and create abundant resources for healthy plants and to connect the plants to those healthy resources. And then the plants grow, and on that tomato or that apple or on that leek are a whole colony of organisms that have existed because of the healthy soil. And if you are careful with your fruits and vegetables, you make sure that you don't eat anything that's too dirty, but you don't wash anything too carefully, you will be ingesting some of those organisms. And as we all know, our immune system is made up of microorganisms as well. And those over millennia, what is happening in the soil and the plant is designed to go into our bodies and help our own immune system. So local food, freshly picked, is a very, very different thing from something you buy in the supermarket. And this is really where our ideas about health equity come in, that this really, really healthy food should be available for everyone in our community. So I'm just here to introduce some of the concepts that we're thinking about, to invite you to participate in any of our programs, our chef series, our Harvest Highlight Chef series, but also our farmers markets, our children's gardens. You're able to, if you'd like, volunteer by writing your name on a form that's on the table out there. You're able to donate if you would like to donate, and you're able to participate by just signing up and getting our newsletter and understanding what we have coming up. So I want to welcome you all. I'm going to hand it over to Sarah, who's going to continue the welcome. So thank you and enjoy.
All right. Thanks, everybody. So I'm Sarah. I'm a program manager with Sustainable Cape, and it's lovely to be here. So I want this to be, where do you want me to be, right here? Oh, because of do we have someone here with Zoom too? Great. So we have Zoomers coming in. I want everybody to feel comfortable here. So this is a great space to ask questions, to feel alive, to come as close as you want, to smell the food, to really engage with our Chef Abraham. So this is our Harvest Highlight program. We have 8 workshops in a series, January through June, or for this year, February through June. So look at the sustainablecape.org website if you go to events, and we'll be posting every month the different events that we have coming up. We highlight local food, we highlight a local chef, and we inspire folks to just try something new, to learn how to cook something different, and also to learn where you can access the great local food. So throughout, we'll talk about where this mushroom came from, where the garlic came from, where you might go during the winter months here on Cape Cod so that you can purchase locally grown food. We also have a sister program called the Harvester Highlight, where every month Sustainable Cape purchases a certain quantity of food. I believe it's $425 or so every month right now of a local crop. So this month it's Uli's mushrooms. We take all of that food and bring it to 3 local community kitchens. And with that comes this lovely newsletter. If you haven't gotten one, we'll pass them around with information, nutritional information about the mushrooms, and also more about where you can access food. So I'll pass this on now. So if you didn't grab one, make sure you take one home. And every month there will be a different newsletter. So today we have Abraham. Abraham is from Swaziland. He has been here in Provincetown with his family since 2020. He came during the pandemic. And he's actually going home to Swaziland next week. So this is a hello and hopefully not a forever goodbye, but a temporary goodbye. He's going home to start a cafe and to work more with the farmers in the area. He's passionate about sustainable farming and regenerative agriculture. His culinary experience began in 2015. He had a great cafe that he ran in Swaziland, which became super popular very fast. Then went on with his team to do catering and special events. Then he did years of having a cafe at Bushfire, which is a really popular festival in Swaziland. Came here to the States at some point between like 2017 or 18, lived in Florida, and his desire to learn more really grew. And he has some really delightful stories to share. And then in 2021, he was here and did an online program with a great school in Colorado, Auguste Escoffier, and learned more about traditional methods and more formal methods of cooking. So today he's here with a real bunch of experience, bringing what he learned from home as a boy in the kitchen with his parents, being in Swaziland, and then being here. And he had a fabulous opportunity at Strangers and Saints to learn from Chef Matt. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens here with oxtail and with a lot of local vegetables. So welcome, Abraham. And please ask questions as we go. This is like a conversation, so engage as you want.
Suppose we could start, sorry, hi all. With the oxtail, I suppose we could just talk about how we prepare it back home. It's kind of similar in the sense that you have to start with a stock, and then you you braise it in the oven for a good 12 hours. But initially, one thing I've learned here in the States is that you clean the oxtail. Back home, you just throw it in the pot, put it in the oven, and it's done. But I've learned that it's good to actually soak it in lemon, salt, and maybe a bit of sugar. So you have like a brine at the same time for a period of 24 hours. The next day, you then trim off the fat, leave it to dry for about 10 minutes, and then you braise it. You sear it. And you have to sear all sides. And you got to be patient with that process. It takes a bit of time. You can't just throw everything in the pot. It's got to be nicely spaced out. And then put it in a Dutch oven or cast iron pot, transfer it to the oven, but you add, back home, we add wine, a red wine with the stock, and you just leave it in there for 24 hours. But then the stock itself, which is something I also learned here with Chef Matt, is at school, we start out with onion, celery, carrots, garlic, ginger, and Chef Matt taught me that you could actually add a whole lot of other ingredients to elevate the flavor of the stock, like apple, ginger. I mean, I didn't think an apple would go into a stock, but orange. He changes it as he goes, and it all depends on the final application of the, sorry, I'm thirsty. The final application of the stock. But for this one, I used celery stalks, onion, garlic, ginger. I used apple. I used fennel seed, thyme, parsley, which we don't have here, sorry. And I added beef bones that you throw in the oven for maybe an hour or so, just to brown the outside. And then that goes into a stock pot, and you cook it for 4 hours. And then after cooking for 12 hours, the oxtail, you strip off the meat and you mash it up and you roll it into a sausage like that, and you stick it in the oven for 24 hours as well. Yes.
Is the oxtail literally the tail of an ox?
Yes.
So that's something that's sold separately from the ox. Like, you go and you buy a tail.
Well, I mean, it will be cut up.
Okay.
You don't buy the whole tail.
So let's slow it down. So for the first step, after you've acquired the oxtail, you said is to clean it.
Well, can you
Yes.
explain what
Can you-
oxtail is?
You know, I actually thought about that. I should have brought a piece of oxtail with, but then it all went in the pot.
Yeah.
So it's basically like the tail of the ox, but what they do here is that they slice it in. You've got the vertebrae, and then they'll cut it in half. Actually, my daughter calls it star food because it's got the shape of a star when it's cut in cross section. That's partly the reason why I decided to go with this method, because I thought I had to Americanize it. We like to eat it off the bone. Yes,
So it very much looks like the vertebrae pieces, right?
Yes.
And then,
exactly.
like, if you imagine the spine just extending to the tail, and then you guys cut it you cut it in half. And then the meat comes off the outside.
Back home, they actually pull the vertebrae piece by piece,
And
but
is-
here they'll cut the very vertebrae in half
Okay. And is the
I'm
meat
not
on
sure
the
why.
outside?
on the outside,
Okay.
yeah. It's not much.
Can you
It's
get
very
this
tough.
at Stop and Shop
Yes,
yourself?
but I find the best cuts, I don't know if I should say, come from Whole Foods. Sorry about that.
Yeah, we went searching for oxtail. Once Abraham decided he wanted to do this for a program, I kind of went searching because I'm like, okay, well, I'd love to know where folks can get oxtail. So I was in Vermont, I'm looking all over. I think the best way, if you're really interested in getting it right from a farmer, is actually to talk to them. to talk to Seawind Meadow, they're in Dennis, because it's not something that they just sell typically at the farmer's market. But if you can establish a relationship and say, hey, I really, really want some oxtail, I'm sure you could get some. The other place, Lilac Hedge, they actually deliver a lot of food to the Cape regularly. So that could be a source too. But again, I think asking for it. But yeah, if you're just looking to kind of play around, you can go to Stop and Shop or Whole Foods. And we bought a bunch of it, but then Abraham, he decided, I want to make sure people can eat. So he used it all in his process.
Are you from Provincetown? Well, I know that the farmer's market here supplies oxtail in the summer. Yeah, they definitely have it.
From Lilac Hedge.
I
Ordered it
can't
2
remember
years
the
ago.
name.
Bayside beef,
Oh, Bayside Beef. Oh, okay.
Bayside Beef?
Hillside Poultry, Bayside beef.
Okay, so you can
Yeah.
talk to,
Was this last season?
Last season.
Correct.
We
Yeah.
always had
so
oxtail.
Mike.
So from
Yeah.
Mike Locke. from
Okay, I reached
Hillside
out
Beef.
and didn't hear back. That's great to know. Okay,
And his
so
was
Mike
really
Locke,
good, less fat. So-
terrific.
Sorry to interrupt your flow, but it seems like you always see oxtail in soup. Is that true in
It just
Swazi?
depends. Yeah, I mean, there's different ways to cook it. You can add it to a soup, but it's just, with us typically, we like to cook it in a red wine braise.
So the first step would be cleaning it. Can you explain that again with the sugar and the salt and the lemon? Like cleaning it and then brining
Yeah,
it?
it's kind of like cleaning and brining at the same time.
Okay,
I mean, it depends on the amount of oxtail you have, but what I use is just a cup of salt and a cup of sugar. And a ton of water. You've got to submerge it in there. So I thought I brought the
big-
tub.
big
Yeah,
pot or a
a
big
really
tub?
big tub, yeah, and you put it in the fridge. I had to research this. There's a guy that uses lemon. I think partly because of the acidity. I don't think it's necessary to actually clean it with the lemon itself. I'm not sure what what purpose it serves, but he does a 3-process cleaning method where he'll leave it in the refrigerator for 24 hours. The next day he'll throw out the water and then I think add more water, put back in the fridge for another hour or 2. And he does that process over and over for maybe a further 2 hours until the water is clear. But I just put it in for 24 hours and it was
Yeah.
pretty
so
sufficient.
sugar and salt in the brine.
Yeah,
And then once you take it out of the brine, what's the next step there?
you kind of have to leave it on a rack to dry up. You don't use anything. You don't use paper towels or a cloth. You got to leave it to dry up naturally. And then you cut off the fat, and there's like a membrane on the outer surface of the oxtail that you got to remove according to those instructions. But with me, I believe that is collagen, and it's actually important for developing gelatin. So I don't do that, which is essential for enhancing the flavor. But we prepare it differently.
Yeah. So you said you put the oxtail in the oven, then to roast it a little to bring out more flavor of the bones before you make the stock. Would that be the next?
I beg your pardon, I might have confused that.
Okay,
I would start with the stock,
start with the
the
stock.
beef stock, yeah.
Okay,
And you don't use the oxtail for the stock. You use beef bones that you throw in the oven. Just got to brown them. You want to just bring out that caramelized flavor. And then you add that stock to the oxtail before you throw it in the oven.
Mhm. Yeah, so you would use the traditional like French is the onion, carrot, celery,
Garlic
and then you can add
Thyme.
garlic, thyme, and you did ginger
and apple
and apple.
and orange.
Nice, and you did a little orange. Okay, sweet.
Yeah,
So then you're basically just making a bone broth. So you could use other bones.
typically.
And in terms of bones, you can definitely get them at the farmer's market from Mike Locke during the summer. Seawind Meadow too sells bones, and if you're at Whole Foods, in the freezer section on the bottom, there's always a lot of bones. So roasting them and then making a really strong broth with that and the vegetables we talked about. When you make a broth, how long do you, or a stock, how long do you like to cook it for?
Beef. Typically it's 4 hours. Chicken, you can do, the longer the better with beef. But with chicken, no more than 3 hours. Otherwise it starts losing its flavor.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so you have your stock that you've strained off. And you have your oxtail that's brined with the sugar and the salt. And then what's the next step? From there, where would you go from there with the red wine?
The red wine will go into the Dutch oven. Basically, I mean, there's two ways you could do that. You could reduce the wine separately and then add it in the end. But I like to cook the oxtail in the red wine, so it absorbs a lot of that wine flavor. And it's actually really good for the oxtail in terms of softening the meat. It tenderizes it. I mean, I don't know if it's the tannins. I'm not really savvy with the scientific part of it. I just know that it tastes better when you've cooked it in the wine.
And when you say cook, you would put it in a pot, cover it with the red wine. A dry wine, a sweeter wine,
Actually, a dry wine is better.
a dry wine.
Sweet is not so good because it becomes concentrated as it reduces.
And then how long would you cook it in the red wine?
I mean, it's the same. You put it in the oven at between 250 and 300 degrees. Very nice.
For a whole night?
No, for about 10 to 12 hours.
Okay, so that's,
But 10 hours is sufficient.
so say the temperature again,
Between 250 and 300.
250 to 300 in the oven with wine for 10 hours? What? Okay. That's,
It's worth it. Trust me.
no, this could be if you're comfortable, this could be an overnight process. So you would like make your stock, then before you go to bed, put it in the oven at that kind of temperature, covered with red wine. Does the wine though, would you have to wake up in the middle of the night and check it and pour more wine?
No,
No, so it's low enough that
the temperature,
the
yeah.
temperature and covered, so
It's
in
got to be covered, yeah. You
in
don't want to lose any.
some kind of,
This one was
Dutch oven.
perfect.
the Dutch oven
Yeah,
was
this one
perfect.
was perfect.
Okay, so that size was good.
So do you sear, you were saying previously that you sear the oxtail
Yeah.
before you cook it in the red wine? And then when does the broth come into that process?
Sorry, so, okay, let's go back to, you sear
Yeah.
the oxtail
Mhm.
on all sides. And
Yeah.
then you add your merwe, which is the carrot, onion,
Yeah,
celery, and
okay.
garlic. And then you pour the red wine, scrape
To
off all
reduce,
the bits, and then add the stock. And then you put back the oxtail. And just make sure that it's not too crowded.
Yeah.
You cover it, put it in the oven, and you're done. You don't even have to check on it.
Could you
I didn't.
explain searing for people in terms of what oil, what temperature?
It's a medium heat and I use olive oil for everything. I know most restaurants don't do that. It's expensive. But it's a medium heat and I usually just wait to see a bit of smoke. That's an indication that it's reached the right temperature. And then I just start searing maybe 3 large pieces at a time. You also don't want to overcrowd that because then it releases the liquids and then it doesn't really do what it's supposed to do.
Okay, so you want the pan nice and hot, so it's just beginning to smoke, just a teeny bit of olive oil, just enough.
Yeah, because it's already
it's
got
not
its own
sticking.
fat,
Mm-hmm,
you know.
nice.
That's the salt.
And do both sides,
All sides.
all sides.
Yeah. You gotta
So-
be patient with that
You have to be
process.
patient.
Because it locks in all the flavor and it allows it to release slowly over time. If you don't, it will break up. And by the time it's done, you're gonna find all the meat all over the place and you don't want that.
Do you salt it while you're doing this?
I know a lot of people do that, but I don't because I know salt draws out the liquid and then makes it dry in the end. So I don't do that.
Okay, so nothing on it.
You just rather salt it at the end. When in fact, I salted mine right at the end when I was pulling it off the bone. And I season it with just salt and white pepper. And roll it up, put it in the refrigerator for 24 hours.
Okay, so let's go back to where we're at with the overnight process. We've got the wine, the stock in the Dutch oven. 10 hours have passed and you pull it out. Then what's your next step?
Using tongs or whatever utensil, I remove the oxtail bits, leave them on a rack to cool down. And then that becomes my my base for a sauce. I would obviously strain off all the vegetables. And then I would reduce that with maybe another cup of wine for another hour or two.
Do you
Depending on
explain
how much
that?
you have.
So you've taken the meat out, you've strained it into a jar, clean all the plant material away. And then you have your fresh pot, pour the liquid back in, and then add a little more wine, like what, like another cup?
That's what I did, yeah.
Another cup? And when you say reduce, what does that mean?
Oh, you basically just boil it at a medium to low temperature. Excuse me, with the lid off. You want all that to evaporate and it starts reducing and concentrating all the flavors.
Okay, so we've got the reduction. And then from there,
And then from there, it's adding whatever flavorings you prefer. In this case, I added a bit of rosemary and more thyme. And then obviously you just play around with salt because that differs according to your taste. I don't like to use too much salt. So what I did was I let it reduce and then tasted it as we go. And then I added a bit of cream to just give it a bit of richness. Then from there, I decided to add the mushroom. I did that separately with a port wine to just add a bit of sweetness because the sauce itself, the sauce for the oxtail didn't have the sweetness I was looking for, but at the same time, I didn't want to add anything last minute. I thought it was fine the way it was. So I thought I'd add the port wine to the mushroom sauce. And then that's when I started with the celery root. I made a puree with it. I had chicken stock already, so we boiled the celery root with onion, carrots for maybe an hour in chicken stock. And then as you test it with a fork, once it's tender, once it goes through easily, you strain that, you remove the carrot, but you keep the onion and the garlic in there, and then you blend it. And as you're blending, you just add a little bit more of the stock and add a bit of cream, taste it as you go. But I also reduced a white wine, a Chardonnay, that I added to the celery puree right at the end, but as you're blending. I hope you're gonna enjoy that.
yeah. Okay, sweet. So we have the meat set aside at this point. We have the stock with the wine that's been reduced set aside. So then you're bringing in this beautiful celery root, which is gorgeous. Right now, you can, if you're interested in getting different root vegetables, check out the Orleans Farmers Market on Saturdays and also the Falmouth Farmers Market. There's all kind of root veggies. I don't know if you all are familiar with Victoria, who has Wellfleet Chicken Coop, but she runs a CSA through the winter. And she's been sourcing some local roots and onions from off Cape, just for a few farms that are just off Cape in Massachusetts. So she's someone to get in touch with too. Right now, regularly, she's been bringing in pounds and pounds of beautiful onions and carrots and sweet potatoes and sometimes celery root. I love the taste and the beauty of this. So we have all of the meat and the other stock aside, and then you'll take this, you said you peeled this and you cut this in just chunks.
The important
Do you want
part-
to just cut
the important
like
part
the
is that
size of that you would do?
It's what is referred to as a large dice in the culinary industry. So I'm afraid of this.
Yeah, we realized that with this is our first time doing an event at Provincetown. We realized with the amount of smoke could be problematic. And so we're just going for it with talking through it, and we'll do a little bit of cooking, but keeping smoking at a minimum. Yeah.
Oops, sorry.
Yes. We'll do that one over there, yeah.
Is this something you would prepare at home normally, or is this more your Americanized version of that?
Well, to be honest with you, I've never come across celery root.
Mm.
It's the first
So
time,
it's a new
and I've seen
experience.
it in supermarkets, and I didn't know what to do with it until I met Chef Matt. And he goes into literally everything he does. I didn't know it was such a prized vegetable here. In fact, we don't get it back home.
Mm.
Yeah, so you could make a puree with just about any vegetable. I love root vegetables, a beet puree,
Yeah,
carrot, celery. I've done cauliflower too. Yeah,
Is the puree just gonna be like one with the stew or like,
so.
We'll
Let's
get
see.
there.
Yeah.
how is the
Those
puree
steps.
gonna be
Yeah.
like with the rest of the meal?
Oh,
Is it gonna be
it's
mixed
just
in?
more about the final plating.
Okay, I see.
It's the base, it forms this,
Okay.
the base.
So at home, when you guys are eating oxtail, how do you typically eat it?
We eat it with what's called pap. It's corn porridge, which can also be done in 3 different ways. It's all got to do with the consistency of the porridge. I like mine really tough. We like to roll it in our hands, like into a ball.
I wonder how that compares to polenta.
Polenta, yes,
Sounds like
Exactly.
polenta.
in fact. That's how I introduced my 2 girls to porridge. I gave them polenta first, and we mix in cheddar to it, so they call it cheesy pap.
Love that. Yeah.
I guess I'm really excited.
So the corn, you can access corn back home. You can get it like just
It's not the
dried
white
and
one,
ground
yeah.
up.
Mm.
Okay, you get actually you do, if you go to a Mexican store. It's what they use to make tortillas,
Mm.
but it won't cook the same as the one we get back home. I mean, maize comes from South America, if I'm not mistaken.
So in Swaziland, people, can you just go, is it a common thing at a restaurant or at a cafe to get?
Oxtail?
Yeah.
Every restaurant serves oxtail.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. And people just suck it off the bone.
Like
Yeah.
Asabuga,
Yeah,
Mm.
Yes.
a lot like Asabuga.
Very much.
yeah.
You hit the nail on the head.
And Seawind Meadow has also always. So if you go to the Orleans Farmers Market on Saturday, they're there every week. And so if you wanted to basically try the same recipe with that cut, you could too.
What's the,
Yeah.
I've never heard of that. food recipes.
Do you know exactly what the cut is? We can look at this book.
I think ossobuco's shanks, I believe.
Shanks, it's shanks,
It's always on the bone.
lamb shanks, yeah.
So it's great to make a stew with or something, and then you could take that bone and you could further make a really strong bone broth with it. Which,
But it's the same thing, it's cut into
exactly the
little
same.
Yeah.
medallions, sort of thick, round
Mm.
medallions. It's the shank cut into pieces, just like the tail.
And yeah, as Sarah said, they're at the Orleans Winter Farmers Market, so, or that's going on right now is, 10 AM to noon, but in the summer, they're also at the Churro Farmers Market up here on Mondays.
yeah, and it's the building, if you're facing the Orleans Whole Food Store on Main Street, it's the building to the left of the community center. And it's 10 to 12.
Every Saturday.
Yeah, and the Falmouth, this year it's at the church.
Yeah, at the
Yeah.
church on Sundays, noon to 3.
Okay. Yeah, so a little bit of a hike, but perhaps it could be a day adventure where you know, go with a friend and explore Falmouth and then pick up loads of food. They also have a, someone making pizza there with a wood stove. So, and like juices and things, so there's food to actually eat while you're shopping, which is nice. Okay, so this is for the puree, so like this kind of size.
With the celery root.
Yeah,
But I find this is just for flavor. You don't, I mean, the reason why you want to cut everything the same size is so that it all cooks uniformly. But you don't really need to with the honey because you just want the flavor and it's easier to remove it when you're done. Unless you want it as part of that puree, but it alters the color of it.
so you had chicken stock, that you cooked on the stove with the celery root, the carrot. And the celery and onion, right?
Yes.
Okay, so all of that, how long, and you said you cooked it just until it was kind of pierceable, right?
Yeah.
So they're just nicely cooked. And then you took out the carrot
I took out the
left,
celery
and you took out the celery. Okay,
Yeah. and I left the onion and garlic.
nice. And when you opened the garlic, how did you just put 1, 2?
Just in half. You just cut it in the cross section
Mhm.
and it's easier to remove
Mm.
and then just stuff everything in there. You don't even have to cut it up.
So pretty strong garlic flavor, so you would use
This was
the
really
whole
good. by the way.
bulb. Okay, so these are,
Really strong.
this is the garlic that Sustainable Cape purchased from Matt Phoenix. Phoenix
Matthew and Lillian from Phoenix Organic Farms.
in Orleans. We purchased $425 worth of this last month and gave it to the community kitchens. He probably still has some, but he tends to go to the Orleans Farmers Market as well. So that's a good way. So cutting it this way, and just letting it open up.
Matthew's also opening a farm stand in South Orleans in spring. He's gardening new space there. So he's at the Winter Farmers Market in Orleans right now. But if you want to check out our Harvest Highlight newsletter on the Sustainable Cape website, there's more information about his farm and where the garlic came from.
Nice. So he's gonna be, the farm stand will probably open, you think in the
In
spring?
March, yeah.
In March. Okay, so that's in South Orleans.
Mhm.
But yeah, you could go and talk with him more and get information. Sweet. Yeah, so once you took out the celery, you took out the carrot, then you put into a food processor or a blender. And just added kind of to your eye the right amount of stock, because you're looking for
And you
certain
taste as you go along,
consistency.
yeah.
Okay, so if you're new to this, would you say in terms of eyeballing it, like a little more vegetable and then adding stock just to cover it or just below it?
I actually find using a food mill is better than a blender.
Mhm.
Because with the blender, it tends to, after a while, it doesn't blend the whole thing. I don't know, it creates space. You've got to keep adding liquid to get it going, which then sometimes ends up leaving it, a really runny consistency, and you don't want that unless depending on the final application, but for this year, it was better to just use a food mill.
Yeah.
Except mine broke halfway, I was going to. So then I had to transfer it to a blender, and then that's when I started adding the stock. But slowly, you just gotta be patient with it. And then I added, I had about a cup of reduced white wine. And I just add like a spoon at a time. Because you also don't want that to overpower the flavor of the celery.
So that would be something on the side, you're reducing a white wine as you're cooking vegetables perhaps. Okay. And then did you put some thyme or rosemary or any,
Just thyme in that one,
a little bit of thyme?
just thyme, yeah.
Okay, nice. And this thyme is actually from my garden. Thyme is one lovely herb that grows right now in Cape Cod, since we don't have really intense frosts this year anyway. The thyme is still growing, so I just went out and cut thyme. We brought our rosemaries in just because you don't know, but the thyme is doing really well. Yeah, so that's something to like look ahead to, is to like keep planting thyme in your garden, because at my house, we've just been cutting thyme all season. It's great.
It does really well here.
Yeah,
I've seen it just about
all winter.
everywhere, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so then what? So Abraham, he's like, after talking with him and thinking about this program for a little while now, the focus is really for him about creating a meal that has all kinds of flavors and textures. So will you talk about, I'd love to go back to the oxtail and talk about that shredding process, because the meat then falls so easily off the bone, and then you have this lovely meat that you could make tacos with, that you could make a bean soup with, that you could throw in your freezer in small amounts and pull out for future meals, which is really lovely. But I'd love to hear about like what you did. Now you have the puree set aside, you have your meat set aside, and where you go from there. Because Abraham has ideas about like a little bit of crunch with a little bit of a fried carrot and a little bit of this and that to make a really lovely meal with all kinds of experiences.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like before I would just cook something. I'd cook a stew and serve it with the starch. But after working in Strangers and Saints, or under Chef Matt, he would talk to me as he prepared stuff, and I asked him, what are you going to do with that? What are you going to do with that? He said, no, this everything I'm doing right now is going to go with, he loved serving celery puree with short rib. So he'd use that as a base, and he'd put the short rib on top, and then a sauce would go in it. And then he would sprinkle, at the time I didn't know what it was, he would deep fry carrot shavings. Then he would just crackle this on top like that. And I guess he could sense that I wanted to try it. So he made out a plate for me, and I sat down. He said, no, you don't have to sit down. I said, well, we're not supposed to eat in the kitchen. He says, it doesn't matter. I'm the head chef here. I said, it's okay for you to stand up. And wow, the flavors were just really amazing. And then that's when I got the sense of why you've got to add like different layers of flavors. And then I thought, I remember saying to him, something is missing though. I couldn't quite figure out what it was. And he said, oh, you're right, I forgot to add something. It was macerated onion, just for the acidity, to balance out the flavors. And I remember doing that yesterday as well. When I was testing it out, I was like, something is missing. I remembered our conversation and thought, okay, I've got to do this overnight, which I prepared like last night about 10 p.m. It's macerated enough.
So what is that?
It's just red onion with rice wine vinegar.
So just like a quick pickle.
Yeah.
And that's it, just red onion slice.
I mean, you
that,
can add
slice that.
other, say, spices. I know some people like to add, what's this? Like allspice, but I forget the other name.
The pimento.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pimento. or cloves, or again, it depends on the final application of whatever you're going to be using it.
Mhm.
And with this, it was just, I felt like the puree needed some color, but it's not necessary. That's just
And what is
a
it?
garnish, really.
Oh, a little
It's not necessary.
chive, or
Yeah.
green onion, yeah. So let's go into the mushroom a little bit. So we're really fortunate to have Uli in Truro. I don't know if you're all familiar with Uli. Uli grows mushrooms year round in Truro. And he's a great resource because he grows oyster mushrooms, shiitake. He also grows lion's mane. And if you ask him like, hey, would you ever consider inoculating this or that? He might go for it. He's pretty accessible and like willing to try new things. So you can find him in the spring, summer, fall at our Truro Farmers Market, in the center of Truro, the Provincetown Farmers Market, and the Orleans Farmers Market, the outdoor one. And then this time of year, starting in March, so just in a few weeks, he'll be at the Winter Farmers Market in Orleans. So you could go every Saturday and buy these beautiful big oysters. These are the oysters before they've really bloomed out. We asked him, hey, can you cut a few a day early? Because Abraham wanted to have a process with them, but they will just grow and become really lovely. So if you go to the farmer's market, you'll see these, they're half-pound containers of shiitakes and bloomed out oysters. So this is a great source of food for a lot of people here on the Outer Cape. Would you go back? You had mentioned using these in a broth. And then you also have a different process that you did with them too. Will you explain?
Typically,
both?
we added to the braise,
To the braids.
but I
So
didn't
with
wanna
the
do
red,
that
with the red wine,
with the red.
you would saute those with the onion and carrot and
Yes.
celery. Okay, so you could do a little mushroom then. But what did you do for today?
I initially I dry fried it. It was flavorful at the time, and it was really. I mean, I liked the crunchiness of it, but then I realized the next morning that it wasn't going to work. So I then soaked it in port wine, and then did a little saute of onion, garlic, added a bit of beef stock to it, and then reduced it.
Hmm.
So you soaked the raw mushrooms
So-
in the port wine?
The
Or
ones that I had dry
The,
fried,
oh, okay.
because I realized it wasn't going to have the effect that I wanted.
Mm.
I actually gave it to my 8-year-old. She's like, nah.
So that's kind of like a cool example of, say you do something in the kitchen and you're not crazy about it, turning it into something else.
Yes.
Yeah.
Instead of throwing it out.
So if you hadn't fried them first, what would you have done with them, you think? Would you have just soaked them raw? Or would you
Yeah,
have done
because they
your
do
process?
absorb,
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of liquid. I would have. Well, I should just say traditionally, we don't do that. I just learned that from Matt here in Provincetown. Like I'd see him do certain things. I'm like, what are you doing? Why? What's the purpose of that? So he'd explain all this because he gets his mushrooms from the very same farmer.
Mhm.
And he had me prepare his mushrooms every day. It's like, okay, you gotta, and I was accustomed to cleaning mushrooms. And he said, no, never clean a mushroom. You don't need to.
so if they arrived with dirt or soil on
You just
them,
rub it off.
just rub it.
Just rub it.
Yeah, so that's like a great thing to know is like never wash your mushrooms in water.
Because you just
Just
add
take
in
a little
more liquid,
cloth.
yeah.
Mhm.
And like you said, Uli's mushrooms are in a lot of local restaurants throughout the Cape now, and yeah, he grows the oysters in an indoor environment that he inoculates them in, so they shouldn't be dirty
Yeah.
anyway.
That's great.
So he'd always say that. He said he'd always like add that he knows the farmer.
Mm.
I know how he does stuff. If it was coming from outside of Cape Cod, then maybe. I don't know
Yeah.
much about mushroom growing, so I'd have liked to meet him.
So you would take them and just slice them up really small for,
If you're gonna do
Before
it in the
cooking them?
braise, it's best to just throw it in whole. Like I would just break this off and throw it in the pot like that.
Mm.
But for this particular application, I did slice it, maybe, I want to say, what's inches again? I was gonna say 3 centimeters,
Quarter inch.
Like, yeah.
3 millimeters, sorry, quarter inch, yes. Because they do reduce, they do lose a bit of their size over 10 hours of cooking. So that's why I like to just throw it in whole.
Mm.
For these, the dry frying really shrunk them. And then when I rehydrated them, they kind of plumped up again. They actually have a really nice texture that I didn't expect. Because I'd never done this before,
Hmm.
but that's for me.
How
Mhm.
long do you dry fry when you do it?
You'll notice when they start shrinking and they change color as well.
And then.
But I would say time-wise, if I had to time it, it's really not that long. I want to say maybe between 5 and 10 minutes.
And when you say
Kinda
dry
like
fry, you
Dehydrated,
get the pan really hot. So it's
like on a medium heat,
medium heat.
and you don't add oil at all. Just throw it on there and just keep stirring it, and maybe add a bit of salt. Not too much, because you're still going to add salt to your sauce, to your final sauce.
So you cook really by taste. You just keep
And smell. Yeah,
taste and smell.
taste and smell.
Yeah.
You get used to it, like, even when you're searing, most times, like, I'll throw the oxtail on there and maybe walk off to do something else, and just by listening to the sizzle, you know when it's done, or when it's ready to be turned to, to do the other side. I like to really listen to what's going on in the kitchen. Even in the oven, like the smell that come out of the oven, they give an indication of how far you've gone with your cooking. Sometimes, I mean, not even time it, I just go with the smell. If I'm going to spend all day in the kitchen, I will know that something is ready just by the smell.
Mm.
Nice. Okay, so now plating. Do you wanna plate? Actually, we have to go into the sausage. We gotta explain the whole sausage bit.
The sausage.
Yeah, so Abraham, we've been thinking, so he really wanted to do oxtail because of the significance in Swaziland. And then he really wanted everyone to have a bite, and it was like, well, how are we gonna do this? So he thought, I'll make it into a sausage patty. So will you
I
explain
actually think
that?
I have enough. I was
Process?
a little concerned about that, yeah. With the sausage, I know some chefs will remove a good portion of the fat. I like to leave it in. I like to leave it in because of the flavor it imparts. And it's actually a lot easier to fry it without adding any oil, because it's already got the natural fat in it. But and as you fry it, like for the final plating, I mean, the application, then it's a lot easier to slice, because it's all like compact because of the fat. I've never done this before, so I don't know if it's going to have the same effect. Do you want me to just throw it in there?
Yeah, well, if someone at home were to make sausage, what would that entail? So once you've gotten your meat off the bone, where would you go from there to make it into a sausage?
Oh, sorry.
Sounds good.
I use cling wrap. You roll it out, maybe 2 layers, and then mush up the oxtail. And then you just form like a long line and start rolling it, but holding with one hand, like you would hold the one end, and you just start rolling it back and forth like that. And when this is finally formed, you go to the other side and do the same thing. And then just cut off the ends. You don't even have to tie it up. You just cut off the ends. And then again, roll it. What happens, or rather what I noticed happened with this, is that when I left it in the refrigerator, I checked on it maybe 3 or 4 hours later. I found that it had kind of created a flat the base was a bit flat, so you have to probably keep taking it out and rolling it again, just to maintain that sausage.
Yeah, so
Right,
it's a
shape.
fair amount of meat that you're really just working with your hands. You're like peeling it into a small, shredding it basically with your hands and then working it.
Like a pulled pork,
Mhm.
in a sense, yeah. But-
Yeah,
But what I noticed, I actually tasted it and I noticed that it needed a bit of salt. I didn't have enough salt in mine, so it's good to actually taste it before you roll it. Because it's harder to add salt in the end. And you want it over the 24-hour period, you want all those flavors to be blended in well,
right.
so that there's no adding salt in the end.
And then you're left with, so your stock becomes your sauce.
Yeah.
And you've reduced that a good amount, so it's got some thickness to it. And you have your puree, and if you wanted to do like a quick pickle or ferment with something, you could really play around with doing different kinds of pickles and ferments. So after you have your sausage at this point, then what's next?
You mean the day after?
The day after, yeah.
Then you just cut it into small patties
Mhm.
and you use any pan really, but I use the cast iron on medium heat. And it's a very quick sear. It's literally, I want to say, maybe no more than 5 seconds on each side, because I left it a little longer and it disintegrated. So it's a quick sear, and then you put it on a sheet pan, throw it in the oven. And in the oven, you do maybe at 350 degrees. And you bake it for 5 minutes, no more than 5 minutes. I did 3 minutes though.
Okay, so it's a quick.
It's just to bring it back to temperature.
Yeah.
Because
totally.
it was already
Okay,
cooked
great.
through in the
Yeah,
overnight
yes,
process.
exactly.
I'm sort of amazed that you can make a sausage without any other binders, that it's just the meat in there itself.
I think it's
That to
gelatin
me is-
and the fat.
That's incredible. Yeah,
And also by hand, not like. it
Yeah.
being-
Yeah. I'm salivating.
I have a question that's kind of jumping back, but when you said you strained your stock or not from the stock, but in the sauce when you had the stock and the wine, and if you had the mushrooms in there and whatnot, I think maybe I'm confusing parts of the process, but the vegetables that were in the sauce that was the meat was cooked in.
Yeah,
But you take the vegetables off to make the sauce, correct?
Yeah.
Would you do anything with those vegetables
No.
after? No,
a bit
all their
too much.
flavors,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
After 10 hours.
after 10 hours, it's
Compost.
exactly.
Yeah, can you say a word? This is very intriguing to me.
Oh, I love adding hot sauce to my food. So I just thought if there are any other hot sauce lovers, yeah, bring this one in too. Just add a little tag.
Is that your favorite
Spicy.
hot sauce?
I
The one,
usually have hot
the one I've
sauce in
found
my
here
burgers.
is, this is the best.
So in Swaziland, there's probably, like, we were mentioning this, like, he was saying, like, in terms of spices, it's kind of like when, like, someone's gonna make Jamaican jerks, there's just like, everyone kind of goes and uses the spices, but you might not know growing up exactly what goes into
Mm.
your curry blend or your spice blend. But there, what are the flavor profiles like? Does food tend to be very warming, very sweet, very spicy, salty, like balanced? How would
So
you
you go
describe
more for
it?
spicy food.
Spicy,
Switzerland,
yeah,
I mean, traditionally, our food is really bland. It's the influence of the settlers that kind of changed that, you know what I mean? Especially with the Indian community in Durban. This is how we were introduced to curries. And then the Africana with their stews and adding wine to everything, that came from them. But for us, it's really just salt and pepper, nothing else. I mean, it's changed over time with the introduction of herbs and spices. I doubt anyone still cooks that way. But especially now, you find that it's even changing even more because of the access to social media and the cooking shows, which is how I learned to cook really. Was just watching Food Network every night after work from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. That's when
So growing up, you said your dad, both your parents cooked, and your dad passed.
my dad cooked.
Your
and my
dad,
mom learned from my dad.
yeah.
But my dad passed on when I was 6, and then she obviously had to take over, and hey, the cooking improved. And I would spend every day in the kitchen with her. And one day, sorry, I was wondering if I should share it, but one day she had a car accident. She was bedridden for 3 months, and she couldn't cook for us because she couldn't get out of bed. So then she would whisper a recipe in my ear and go to the kitchen. And so I'd go in there, and I completely forgot about the cumin. She had said 2 teaspoons, but I just dumped it. So she started writing it down for me, and that's when I suppose that's when I really started liking cooking, or realized that I had a passion for it. I loved being in the kitchen, and I was telling Sarah about when I lived in Florida. I used to walk past this the Culinary Institute of Fort Lauderdale. I'd walk past there every day on my way to work, and I would just stop without knowing why. And you'd see all the chefs. There was a large window, and they'd all be just standing in line and cooking. And I just found that so mesmerizing. And I'd just stand there for maybe 10, 15 minutes every day for a solid 3 years.
And they would
Did I
say,
know?
when they say, come on in, isn't it?
Yeah, they were trying to get me to go in, like, clearly you want to be part of this. No, I don't have time. But now I know why. Sometimes it takes a long time for us to realize what we're passionate about. And for me, it took 45 years. Okay, I'm going to throw this in the oven just to heat it up, unless you want to ask more questions.
Did you want to do it on here first, or?
I'm thinking it's probably not necessary, because I was just counting and I realized if you all want to try it, there's enough for everyone.
Okay, great.
It's just to avoid the smoke as well.
Yeah, okay,
you know?
super. Great. I'll get out.
It would have been nice. What I'll need to do is just heat up the sauce a bit,
Yeah.
or maybe just that.
Get some spoons. But you have to.
And I get a sense I forgot something. I do apologize. For the sauce, you do have to make a roux with mutton.
Oh, will you talk about that?
I forgot about the roux.
A roux.
Once you have the broth, or the gravy, I should say, from the braised oxtail, you don't need to make a roux, making like equal parts butter and flour. And depending on, well, for this specific dish, you want to brown it a bit. You want to have it caramelized a bit, and then you add that to the sauce, or rather just add the stock to it, just to thicken it a bit, and then you cook it for maybe a further, I want to say 15-20 minutes. I use arrowroot powder, which doesn't really require cooking it longer than you would if it were flour, just to get rid of that flour taste. Arrowroot is nicer because it leaves like a nice glossy finish as well.
And then it's a gluten-free option.
It's gluten-free option.
Yeah.
That's true.
So in a small saucepan, how much butter to flour or to arrowroot? Can you say? What, like half and half? Like, is it like
One
With flour, it's half and half, but
Okay.
with arrowroot, not necessarily.
just
It doesn't.
even less arrowroot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I used maybe half a stick. Yeah, just about half a stick of butter and a teaspoon of arrowroot.
Oh, wow.
And then you're just stirring.
Yeah.
And thickening and browning. And that's what you add to
And you
your
just keep
stock
adding.
to make a gravy.
Yeah,
Oh,
just keep
okay.
adding the stock until
Okay.
you reach the right consistency.
That's awesome. Okay, sweet.
And I remember we actually talked about what you could also do with I don't know if you mentioned that. Like I thought this would be great on tacos
Mm.
and it'd be
Yeah.
great in pies as well. Like once you have this in the refrigerator, you can use it in so many other different ways.
I love the idea of a pie. With lots of other like root vegetables.
Mm.
Yeah. Let's start doing some of the plates.
Want to heat this up.
So what's this that you're using?
This is the mushroom sauce.
The mushroom
Yeah.
sauce.
That one would be actually.
I'm very happy to hear that Mike Block has oxtail through the summer. That's
Mhm.
great. Okay, so Provincetown Farmers Market. You can get some local oxtail from the cows that they're raising in Truro. It's terrific. And a lot of other cuts of meat. And beautiful whole chickens that Drew he's, has lots of chickens in Truro. And now he actually has breasts and thighs available too. So if you're not interested in buying a whole chicken, but say you do want to get a whole chicken, you can, let's say you cook that chicken and then make a stock with it, then you can use that stock for your celeriac or celery root puree. Yeah, pretty sweet.
Yeah, like you said, I think it's great to make connections with those farmers. Drew also has chicken feet and neck and whatnot if you want to just use that to make stock as well.
Yeah, and if you tell him that you're interested, he'll make sure to bring bags of necks and feet. And that makes incredible stock because it's just so full of collagen. And again, Seawind Meadow, they're at the Orleans Farmers Market throughout the year, the winter one and the spring, summer, fall.
And Drew from Hillside is at the Orleans Market throughout the winter right now too. So you
Great,
can both-
yeah, so you can still get chickens.
It's like you can use another pan.
Diane, maybe it's like to set it up on that place to grow that table for your black.
That'll be a lot better.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that.
You want to come up and talk?
Are your girls interested in cooking?
The older one is.
Yeah.
Yeah. The younger one, no, she's a princess. She wants to be served breakfast in bed.
She does love gardening with us at school.
She does actually love spending time outdoors.
Mm.
How old is she now? Is she 6?
Tessa is 6 and Olivia is 8.
So when you go home to Swaziland and you open the cafe, what kinds of foods are you hoping to serve?
It's going to be a bit tough because I've been, like, for instance, like I said, we don't get celery root, but I'm hoping that I'll be able to grow my own. I'd just like to introduce what I've learned this side, maybe using the local ingredients. It's just more about the cooking method.
So what are you putting on top now?
This is sauce. Instead of, I thought of heating it up, but then I forget, if I throw it in there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it all at
You
once.
know.
So I'm also thinking about just like things that you would want available. White wine in the puree, red wine in the meat and the gravy. Rice wine vinegar in here. Like different kinds of salts perhaps, like what kind of salt do you usually do like a sea salt and then like a finishing salt?
I just use the same salt.
Sea salt.
It's sea salt, but what's brand with it starts with an M? What is?
Well done.
That's the one, no, not it.
That's a really nice salt. That's a delicious salt. From all
French,
them.
yeah.
Yeah,
French.
so good. Yeah, so, and then, and white peppercorn. You said, which just has like a softer flavor. If you didn't have white, would you use black peppercorn?
I use black in the stock, and I use white pepper in the sauces. Also something that I learned this time. In the past, I always used just black pepper,
Yeah,
but it's all like freshly ground.
mortar and pestle or like
Yeah.
a cream. Nice.
So it is-
And if you're growing chives at home, you could go out and pick a handful of chives, cut them up. It's kind of, I love growing chives because they're one of the earliest greens that I get from my garden and tend to last quite some time. And this year we had, so like, once you start growing chives just tend to take over. So we actually dried our chives, which was fabulous to dry them in a dehydrator because we had so many and store that. And then I've been using that in cooking, which has been really sweet.
I can smell it already.
And if anyone needs water, Courtney said there's, we've got some cups and a water cooler in here.
I just asked at the front and they said there wasn't any.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'm like, I feel like I'm really,
Yeah.
But in so much easier.
Next time, okay.
We should change this and make something.
Very good.
So it's fun about this series because every chef obviously brings their whole like experience, but also a different focus. So like Garrett Smythe, who will have an event March 30th. He's been the chef at the Pheasant in Dennis for the last years, but he's moving on to his own project. He loves making all kinds of different pickles and ferments. So he'll probably focus on that a good amount in March. So if you're interested in learning more about making quick pickles or like, or other kinds of ferments, I'm hoping he really shares a lot of tips.
Is that here too?
That one will be at the Wealthy. Yeah, so, as we organize, I'll be putting up more and more of the schedule on the website. But the next one will be here February 24th with Nicole. And, she's actually going to make a dish with, Blenta corn that she's gotten from the grist mill in London. Which is really sweet. And she'll also, utilize Louise mushrooms.
Do you want to talk about the series a little bit and what they'll be? Like not each one, but that they're helping.
Yeah, oh yeah, so the series, these workshops are gonna be at 3 different libraries, so the Provincetown Library for 3 of them, the Truro Library and the Wellfleet Library. Which is great, so different spaces, and different rooms. They're all about this size. Wellfleet's a little bit larger and actually has like a pretty decent sized kitchen there. So we'll be able to do a little more.
And then who else maybe?
Yeah, So we'll have Nicole on the 24th here. Garrett, like I mentioned, in March. We're also looking forward to Liam, who's the owner of Salty Market, doing a workshop in April. Then we have Kitty, who's Wampanoag, who will be coming in May and talking about traditional Wampanoag food. And in June, I'm blanking, just give me a moment.
It's a far off time.
Let's work on the website.
Okay.
June's gonna come.
You have.
It's so funny when my brain. Oh, it's Julia, who's from the Ukraine.
Yeah.
And Julia and her husband actually run the Montessori school in Centerville. And they're growing, they have a garden that they're growing food with the young kids. And she's from the Ukraine and loves to cook, has so much cooking experience, and also lived in China for 6 years. So she's going to do a traditional Ukrainian meal. And each month, there's gonna be a different focus. So this month, we have the mushrooms. We're also utilizing the garlic. In April, we'll be talking and focusing on eggs that we'll get from Wealthy Chicken Coop. Then we have different kinds of greens in the spring and carrots in June. So yeah, it's kind of delightful. We'll be using all kinds of different foods, but a different crop will be highlighted each month. And always, Jackie does a marvelous job creating this, so always some nutritional information. And these go out to the community kitchens and also to our HIP CSA. And if you're interested, if you have a population of people and you want to spread the word about local food, just get in touch.
Abraham, what did you put on? There's something crunchy, it looks like, you put on top of the puree.
What's here on the side? Is that the
Oh, that's just,
fried carrots?
no, it's just the taste.
Potato.
Potato.
Oh, I didn't know.
Me too.
It's always evolving, it sounds like.
No, because I wanted something really crunchy and I felt like
Oh, cool.
deep fried carrot wasn't going to quite do it.
Yeah,
So I added that on the side, just in case. Okay.
just a little.
Oh, sucks.
And the carrots are like the way you cut them so small. I love the look of that shaving.
So I don't know where Swaziland is. Where is it?
So it's actually currently called Eswatini. It's in South Africa. We can pull up a map. You wanna pull up a map? And we can show.
It's like completely surrounded by itself. Is it?
I believe it's kind of on
Is
the
it
more east, more
territory
on the
within
eastern
South Africa? Is it its own country or is it a region of? South
country. Yeah, Eswatini
What's the use?
is but I asked Abraham, do you want me to refer to it, the country as Swaziland or?
It's called the
Eswatini and-
Swatini now.
What?
and he,
They changed it
Feels
because
more
it sounded too much
Swazi.
like Switzerland.
when did it change?
I'd say 3 or 4 years ago.
It's very recent. I know nothing about the politics. So I don't know, maybe if you want to share a little bit about what's happening there politically.
You know, I want to say very much stuff is. No. It's gonna get me in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking about, should I say this? But it's gonna get me in trouble.
Provincetown.
We can stay away from
No,
politics.
I mean, it's fine here. It's gonna get me in trouble if somebody from back home watches it. And I'm
Yeah.
going back home.
Yeah, we won't go there. I think this one. And the cafe from 2015 to 2018 got a lot of, became really popular. It was in the local newspaper and then you were highlighted in local TV. And this was in Mbabane,
Bye-bye.
in Mbabane, which is the, and it's not gonna stay, Mbabane, which is the capital.
And what kind of food did we prepare there?
It was mostly, we did sandwiches a lot. It was just like a lunch thing, more than anything else.
It was a collaboration with someone from Germany.
Yes. The German guy who ran a similar, he kind of took the concept of apple stores. What do they?
Apple,
Like,
I feel like there's a
an apple
name, like an
orchard,
apple store, no, but,
an apple store.
no, sorry, like.
Oh, like an-
I,
like
Like
a,
my shop.
technology.
Yeah.
Oh,
Look
okay.
at iPhone.
I'm thinking
Yeah.
food, yeah.
not a phone store.
oh, yeah, those carrots are beautiful like that. So do you like, peel the carrots to get, or just slice them that then?
Just peel it.
Hmm.
And then it shrinks.
And then you sauteed it in olive oil?
Yes. But
Yes.
just. Not doing it very well, sorry.
It's beautiful. What are we using as utensils?
I mean, forks.
Wait,
Or do we have to?
Maybe I should have started with something.
The green?
Abraham is ADHD.
Speaking of farm stands, though, definitely be on the lookout, for when Digri and Bala open up their farm stand in Truro, 8 Truro Center Road. As soon as things start growing, hopefully, I would just keep an eye out, March, April, May.
We'll announce it on Facebook too.
Yeah, okay, so Sustainable Food announced the opening of the farm stand on Facebook. But Digri and Bala, a Nepalese family, they produce a lot of incredible nutrient-rich food in Truro. And for folks in Truro, it's a real gift because I think this year we were going to the farm stand into December.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, so spring until we have a frost. Oh, and actually, I was just there the other day getting parsley that Abraham used. Abraham, can you remind us of where you put the parsley
And the stock
in the stock?
and the braise.
Mm.
But it's not necessary for the braise. That was just out of habit. The stock definitely.
Yeah, I called up Digri and she was really generous to go out and we picked the parsley that was still growing on her farm. And she provided some time as well.
How did you get to Provincetown from South Africa?
Oh, we actually lived in, you familiar with Myanmar? Burma.
Mhm.
Yeah, we were in Burma for 7 months prior to COVID. The COVID outbreak. And then we were basically told to leave the country. And we ended up here. Because my wife's family owns a second home here. It was supposed to be for 6 months. We thought it was going to be done within 6 to 8 months. But I'm grateful.
Mhm.
I wouldn't be standing here in front of you guys if that hadn't happened. I was going to be a physical therapist. But I guess the universe has a different plan.
So when you plate, is it just intuition and aesthetic?
It's more the flavor profile and the aesthetic. Of course, the sage. You eat with your eyes first. And I feel like yesterday, which is part of the reason why I ended up macerating. So when I tasted it, I was like, something is missing. So that's why you've got the the pickled onion.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoy. I
Thank
think,
you.
I think there's one missing. Probably should make another.
Oh, that's okay.
I think there's someone who doesn't eat meat, so I think it might actually be required.
Yeah?
Yeah. I believe
Just
so. So how about everybody, yeah, do you wanna try just the celery?
Yeah.
You wanna maybe do a plate of everything else but the meat?
Are you vegetarian?
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't look at me like, you're like.
No, sorry.
Celery
That's
with
what I'm
chicken
at.
stuff in it.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah,
Celery root has chicken stock in it.
Oh, I don't mind that.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm
super,
not that strict.
okay, great. Nice, we can do this one. Does everyone wanna just kind of slowly come up and, grab? One.
Thank you so much. Good to see you.
Thank you for coming. Okay.
And if you're gonna get a chance to find people outside and there being newsletters out there. And this looks beautiful. Okay, did everyone see that?
Yeah, good stuff.
Oh, we're
They're
be.
so beautiful. Yeah, can we get a nice, you get a nice top shot of all of them? They're just lovely.
Thank you so very much. You have to run away. Someone's waiting.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you.
very, very much.
Nice to see you.
Safe
Go for it.
travel.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I'll be back.
Good.
Case one.
Bye, we'll see you soon. Nate.
I have to come visit.
Nice. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Leland keeps talking about you guys coming in the summer. Is that just, okay, good.
Every summer.
Oh, every summer. Oh, fun. Nice.
Why it's not-
Really bored, but.
Yeah, it's not every harvest highlight that you get on the.
Yeah.
So well put together. Like. Yeah. Also on your way out, be sure to take a rack card if you don't have one, and that it lists all the information about the farmer's market. And you can always look at our website too, or reach out if you have any questions.
Yes. Yeah.
They're so. I think they eat to late my kids' food like this. And they, maybe they'd be more excited.
Oh, Sarah, Gil was so excited the other day holding up his lunchbox. for everyone. So he ate everything. He was like,
He came home and it was.
I'm done.
Seems like without eating, I'm not here.
He said, he told me.
That was the first thing he showed me. He like got home, whipped open his backpack.
That's not.
Wait, I didn't get to do a big thank you to Provincetown TV while that was on.
Right.
Yeah, maybe we'll just eat for a minute and like do a wrap up. So he got in, so flavorful and delicious. He got in the house, he whips open his backpack. I wasn't paying attention. I was like, I'm like, what is he doing? Whips open his lunchbox. He comes up and he's like,
He ate his whole lunch. It was really awesome. Actually, when he stood up, there was a red pepper on his chair and he was like, and he just ate it. He was like, how good I?
It's hilarious.
Very cool. Because he's been eating a little less.
Yes, exactly.
yeah, I think I got at 6 a.m.
But
I,
yeah, he was so thrilled.
that's great.
Yes, I'm.
The name of it. It's inspiring.
Yeah, I don't know how you do it.
Natural. I think it was healthy.
Well, they're all kind of strapped in a little bit, or do they stay?
So like,
Everyone's
Even like, we're trying to stretch a little bit, and they say they're all done, okay, you don't have to eat anymore, we're all just sitting together.
Nice.
But I just think it's a good skill to have to be able to really done eating and not just have to get up right away.
Yeah.
Yeah, that you have to be very aware.
The meal time just got very chaotic at our house.
You know, a lot of it is. Figuring out.
There's certain chaotic elements that kids will be able to school. Certain kids who should have probably been starting a nap like a half hour earlier.
Celery salt. It is like.
Very
I didn't know it was so important today.
It's one of my favorite. I like making like a potato leek soup, but with celery. It's delicious. That goes so well with them.
It wasn't until I worked at the farm with kids that I learned about all these different roots. I've always heard like winter soup, so it's like I've been about. I would use the rutabaga for anything, but I like.
I've never grown something. Do you take the root out too?
Yeah, I hope I do. Right.
Yeah, I think it's awesome.
This was nice because like I didn't even think about it that much, but this one's up higher, so it's like a really nice angle.
Yeah. That would be like that.
Yeah, so I have to remember that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And they were here for like 6
You
years.
get celery out.
Yeah.
Right?
I
mean, I can see how some of this go down.
Yeah.
This is great. I don't know.
From back here?
Yeah.
Or-
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like what?
But I'm so glad
No,
very well, we see. Very
going away. So most of them had it. Oh,
All right.
yeah, it's good, like fries.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Never had that problem.
Well, yes. Your daughter had.
Oh,
yeah, no, okay.
Have a good day.
You only need to grow a couple of them.
Yeah.
I have from like 3 years ago. Like they're green.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
maybe-
Oh, my God.
Yeah. They just keep working.
He
I
actually.
know, we only grew
Yeah.
like 3 plants.
Yeah.
We take them all the way.
It never.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
it-
yeah.
But I want to learn more about.
Takes a lot of work. I remember what this was about. The leader go to engage with people, yeah, and they just like. Yeah, yeah. Just moved away.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think it's important.
First
And,
time.
culture, right, is to get.
Real blessings.
Yeah. Yeah. And then also, I think we're doing the pool. Yeah. So there's right.
Yeah. What's your first size? Denise.
And when you started, it was like.
I don't.
Yeah.
Hopefully, do you add another?
Yeah, like, oh my God. And, you know, my children wanted to sometimes eat in the school. It started with breakfast. My daughter made, she was in. I said, Mom,
everyone goes, no breakfast.
I want to go.
And that's how I want to go. So I thought, I really want to go because what it was fried dough with sugar and syrup. I was so blown away. That's like a Sunday treat. It is, but it's not a way to start a day for a group of small children. They're all like, oh, it's just like a sugar infusion. And I was like, oh my God. And then I started looking at, you know, eventually I grew and we have a farm, so the children were growing up in living for, yeah, sheep and chickens and bees, gardens, and we moved from the city, but we it all happened and like grew with our children, and it was a beautiful thing. And then we started to send out to school, this whole circle of health, and we were very badly broken. And I was like,
A little wrap up.
change. So first of all, Geraldine was one of our first, or sorry, children's garden, one of our key volunteers in the beginning. That garden and teaching children, like when they grow, they feel that's really the secret.
Yeah.
Like if you just serve it to them, they think, oh, I'm not yucky or whatever.
Right.
Children.
Yeah, what's a syrup? Mostly like cherries, riots.
Kids really wanted to pick the bees range, but they were. And it was Jill.
Okay, yeah.
Those great dark red. And they were girls.
Oh, wow.
Oh, are they square? He was so used to having a lunchroom and a little. At least she has.
Some simple concept of what a beet is, yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, then they just love it. They just, I mean, kale is the preferred vegetable.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You like, I think it might have your letter might be. So glad.
I was gonna go.
And what's your?
Yeah.
You don't really have.
Yeah.
Kale is really very good. And I just want to thank you for this. Yeah, and now.
Really great.
Oh, fun. Oh, fellow.
Come along.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Couple.
Well, because,
Oh,
yeah, it's up earlier all the time.
I love that. Okay. Good team.
Oh, yeah.
Someone is
Great
working
job.
at the bar and he said, I wanted to.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, we'd love to.
We have a really good stair builder. Every guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And-
He only works on 20 hours.
So.
Where's he live?
Yeah. With him.
Yeah, well,
I remember something, he worked at Interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah, we'll have to figure out this space.
So is it like a circular?
Well,
It's a beautiful.
Yeah.
And then what are they gonna do with their other house?
Oh, well, he's coming back.
They're gonna do a study. He's the best.
He's trying hard.
Just for one song.
It's all like, trees, like shelters, it's like a glass house. You see it.
Oh, it's what, and it has a little
Really wanna
driveway.
try that.
There.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like,
Well,
You think it-
yeah, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I just asked.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
We're gonna go to the Hollywood.
So now that you're
Really
So to the first
Right.
here. Yeah.
I was like, at this time, I was like.
It's just like sharing.
Oh, like, people don't really want to. Yeah, just how do you happy about every decision you decide to
Right,
make.
right. If you just like, by this point, it's like having white noise just going out.
I kind of do. I like see it and like, it's like, but I was like, you know, it's just like, it's like.
Yeah.
Instead of having your emotion, I go like, it's really like, I got there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Such a lucky guy.
Yeah.
Which
yeah.
one do I like?
Right, right.
And.
You're acting. I know. and-
Oh, my TV's
Yeah, I would think
Yeah.
it must come from, but I don't know. About it, like,
Yeah, these two.
you know, it's not like. They were taking one. We don't actually. I accept, but it's like, but you can change you. Because I don't think it's still like. Right, thank you, great job, yeah, oh, we're not considering those details, I'll definitely before.
Oh. I
Yeah.
asked to go.
Yeah.
And I'll make a little outclass that we're all there.
Okay.
So.
Great. Okay, thank you, Libby, great job.
Yeah.
But I think like.
I'm not- But it goes.
Park him in certain places, like. Wherever, and years ago, this person, you're gonna go and say, so it must have rained, when I say like. They're gonna go to northern, like closer not, I think it brings up that, oh my god, this is happening. Instead of.
Southern Utah is also
Very
Yeah, that's a really.
insightful.
No, I guess it's really true. It sounds like-
But I don't know, no matter what way I present it, or slowly, or just say, like, here, I'm thinking whatever you're thinking is okay.
Oh, really?
Whatever. I'm not expecting any change, but I'm like, you know, and I remember like in Cambridge, I remember I used to. They got really stressed out about my job, so things that I wasn't expecting, I love. I got like a 9-month program. Intern and route. I remember I was. I called like, I have my. You gotta stop. Yeah. And I really had to think about like, how do I coach these guys? And how, like,
I'm good. I love
like a lot of work figuring that out. But I keep
What did you say? Thank you for joining us. And then she
and you don't have to, but
Well,
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's really.
Yeah.
Here, Abraham, just stand right here with me.
You have to want to.
Yeah, you have to recognize it doesn't work.
No poop on his back.
Good.
With the baby.
Like bread.
That is so delicious. Now I just.
Yeah, that's,
Really.
that was really good, thank you.
So good. I love all the flavors.
Mountain flow.
I really like the puree.
Good.
Yeah.
Puree, like, I can just, yeah, me too. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hold on. We have a little quiet just for a minute.
Yeah.
On
Yes.
internet, like Harvard Medical,
We're-
that's probably.
Great.
That's my,
Just one sec. We just
We
need
have
to
a little
close
quiet.
this just for a minute and then we'll be
I
done.
get to tell the librarian to be quiet. That's good.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us here at Provincetown Library with Chef Abraham. And join us again on February 24th with Nicole Cormier. And check out sustainablecape.org for all the information. Thanks, Provincetown TV.
Okay.
Yes,
All right, great.
yeah.
Thank you.
Nate, thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thanks, that was delicious.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, Nate, great work. These cameras are
And you only
amazing.
happily do the P-Town ones, right?
Well, I can't,
Uh,
because next
yeah,
week,
but
it-
you can,
or
like,
next
if
week
you want
is
some,
break,
everything.
so we
Right.
have plans to be away for break. We're going
Awesome.
To Vermont
Awesome.
skiing, yeah.
Oh,
It's
good.
gonna be great.
That'll be great.
Yeah.
Great.
Oh, I love JP.
Yeah, it's awesome because it has an indoor water park too, so like.
Oh, yeah, it does, yeah.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Kids,
Yeah.
and they just love to ski too, so it's all good.
Oh,
And
that's
I don't
awesome.
think we'll be back for that.
For the
Um,
Nicole's.
Oh,
Yeah,
for the
which is
24th.
Bummed about
Oh.
because I really want to do some more recording with Nicole too.
Yeah. Is there
I
any,
think she would
do
be
you have a
great.
volunteer who's equipped?
Um,
Did you get
but yeah.
I can
No.
check and see.
No.
I can't do
This was great,
All right.
but I think what we'll do is we'll try out the owl. They have it, we'll make
Yeah.
it work, but thank you so much
Yeah.
for bringing all.
I would suggest though, this was nice. It was just kind of like,
I thought you were gonna suggest, sorry. Not for laughing enough.
it was just kind of happenstance, but I had it up higher. And that was actually really nice.
Oh, good.
Because you can really see what's going on.
Happening.
And the
Yeah.
other ones, I couldn't as much. But this spot is, so even if you use the owl, if you can get it up a little higher,
Yeah.
then good.
I'll come in with and have a little time with Courtney and play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, and I'll check and see if I have somebody, but they're just, they haven't been like at the stations.
Other people
Years.
doing.
Yeah, it's been like in the past there were people, but because it was so kind of like nobody's really doing much the past few years before I got,
Yeah.
before I took over.
Yeah.
The volunteers are like. People tell me like, oh, yeah, it used to be like, so many people were doing stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of times too, people that want to do things, they're nowadays, they can just do their own thing, like with YouTube.
Yeah.
So it's kind of different now, where it used to be like, it's kind of necessary to. It's just really easy to get, it's easier than ever to get cameras, and you can put stuff online, so you
Yeah.
can share it.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole other world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so the volunteers are like, there's not a lot of them.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm taking back. Just thought I've done that before.
Especially like we have a couple people that
Yeah.
like help me sometimes, but I wouldn't really say they could come and do everything. And they're kind of like people skills aren't that high. So I would, I would trust them, but it's just that, those things.
Yeah, I mean, I